Okay, just a few minutes ago, I asked a bunch of people on BandLab if they thought it would be interesting to see how I write a song, because I think it would be really interesting to see how you write a song. So let me give you a little backdrop into how I got to the point where I'm at now and how I write songs. About 2 years ago, I couldn't play anything, maybe just a couple chords if I was lucky to be able to try to remember that. Sure, I could have sat there and, pushed my fingers on the keys, and I'm sure I would have found things eventually. How I chose to go about it, though, was I did a Google search. I found some of these great resources online, like this. I don't know if that's going to come out or not, but essentially what that does is it gives you the basic chords involved in a key. So this one is, I believe, G major. And so it lists all the chords, the basic chords in that key. And then additionally, in my research, I found that down here, some of the common chord progressions used. And so that's how I started with it. I started by looking this stuff up and figuring out what was available. Because if you sit there and you look at a guitar has, I believe, 49 possible notes, or a keyboard like I have, there's 88 notes, and you could just stare at them for days. You could hit keys and never really get anywhere. So what this does is it reduces the number of available keys, first of all, and second of all, I was able to find some of the common chord progressions that were used in that key or in that mode. And through that time, I found that I prefer minor modes, just because I like the way they sound. So normally what I'll do is, at random, I'll choose a mode. I'll say, hey, today we're doing A minor, or today we're doing whatever. And I'll play with the chords for a while. Sometimes a melody will emerge, other times just a chord progression, and then I just build off of that. So for this example, I chose something that I'm pretty sure I haven't used before. It's F Phrygian. So in the key of, or in the mode of F Phrygian, we have the notes F, G flat, A flat, B flat, C, D flat, and E flat. And then I guess you could say F again, So hopefully you can see that. Okay. So what I've done by doing that is I've reduced the total number of notes that are available on the keyboard, and also I can create from these notes chords, and I've also chosen a tonic, which is F, which means F will sound good over the top of just about every chord there is in this key. So I've made my choice, and now I'm going to go see what happens when I try to create something. Okay, the piano sounded great, but I could tell immediately it was going to take me down the road of something that was going to require vocals. So I immediately set that aside and started working on a different sound. I touched on some electronic for a few hours. Again, sounded good, just wasn't feeling it. I finally ended up picking up a guitar. I don't play guitar well, but when you drop this first string down to a D, everybody plays guitar well. So what I did is I decided to outline that Phrygian mode, and how that's defined in to my ears is a sound like this. It's a half step between the root, usually the first note that you play, and the next note in the scale. So what I came up with was something like this. Then I created a bridge or a chorus or something like that to accompany that, because you can't just keep playing that all day. I have that recorded, and it's really terrible. It's going to have to be redone. I'm going to go with that for now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to build the parts around it. The guitar may change as I build the parts around it. The first piece is going to be the bass. I was just looking over the editing of this video, and it's starting to feel like it's getting a little long in the tooth, so I'm going to try to shorten it up from here on out. As I was looking over the video, I was thinking, I could have made this video about 30 seconds long and said, how do I write a song? And just did that. That's how I write a song, or that's how I start. I'm too old to try to figure out every note and chord combination that sounds good. So instead, I've chosen to rely on the thousands of other people that have come before me and have written down their experience. People have spent their entire lives studying music. I don't have that much time left, so I'm going to rely on the other people who've already figured it out. So, remembering that it is music theory and not music rules, that's the most important thing. Okay, so on to the solo. I feel like when I'm doing it instrumental, a solo is critically important. I guess it's because growing up, listening to the music that I listened to, the solo was the centerpiece of the song. The song might have been great, but when Randy Rhoads or Tony Iommi played, it was the most important part of the song. You would stop and you would listen. So that is the one thing that I know will take me years to work out. But again, I use music theory to try to shorten that learning curve. So the first thing I use, and one of the first things that I found, was the blues scale. And I use it almost in every song that I put a solo on. So in our key, or in our mode, I keep saying it, in our mode that we're using today, the blues F blues scale, looks like this. It's got the F, which is the root. It's got A flat. It's got our B flat. And then it has a note that is not even in the key, the mode. B. It's got C. And it's got E flat. If you create a chord progression like I did and just play these notes slow or fast over the top of it, it's going to sound good. Every single note except for this one, the B. The B is called the grace note. You can lay into it, but you have to set it up before you do that. So you can play all the scale tones, and in my solo that I created, I did use all of them just because half steps sound cool. Anytime you go up and down a half step, just like the chord progression of the song has, the half steps are really neat. So here we have a half step from D flat to C. We also have a half step from the G flat to the F. I work very hard on the solos, sometimes harder than I should. I'll usually spend about 3 hours, but it seems like here recently I've been spending a lot more. And I think mostly because I want each solo to be unique. I don't want to use a trick or a lick that I used in a previous song. Eventually it's unavoidable, but I at least try to mix it up as best I can. And there's the solo. I think that pretty much covers the basics of how I create a song. I choose a key, I choose a mode, I familiarize myself with the scale, and then either I'll create a melody or a chord progression. Always start with the piano for some reason, and then I'll build from there. The piano usually doesn't make it through the production. So this was my first attempt at making a video. Hopefully it doesn't suck too much. And hopefully I explained what I was trying to explain. There's tons of stuff that I left out, but you know, it's time. So from here we're going to go ahead and I'm going to play the actual complete song. I'm going to show it through the eyes of my DAW Mixcraft, and I added some tidbits of information, things like some of the instruments, the VSTIs that I used to create the song. I'm going to do that, and then that'll pretty much close it out. Love to hear what you guys think.